Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Did you know that Dres in KSP2 now has some rings? Well, now you know, and we are gonna go and visit the planet and visit its rings and explore them in this video. Welcome back to my channel, I'm Pietro, and today we are gonna visit Dres. Okay, so while in the background we see the footage of me building the rocket and the probe for today's mission, we know that we need around 7,600 meters per second of delta V. That's what the trip planner tells us, therefore that's gonna be our objective. I opted for a medium-sized probe core with a medium-sized hydrogen tank with below the nuclear engine. I added the RCS, I added the SAS, obviously some batteries, an antenna to make it look cooler. Then obviously we need some electrical power generation, therefore I put two gigantors in the dual symmetry, pressing X there to go in dual symmetry, then pressing X again a few times to get the reaction control thrusters at the height of the center of mass. Then obviously adding the next stage, which requires the insertion of a fairing. You see, I like to go for the large size then after the medium in the previous, so that I do not need to have a fairing that goes out and then closes it back, because that can create some instability. Here I was deciding if going for a skipper or going for a labradoodle. I prefer the labradoodle since that has some more thrust, it has a bigger ISP and also is of the correct size for that particular tank, therefore making less instability. Here I was analyzing the difference between the vectors and the mammoth, and I prefer to go for 4 vectors because the vectors, having a high vector control, they can better orient our spacecraft, better control it actually, our rocket during the launch with respect to the other, without the requirement of adding tail fins, of adding boosters to stabilize it more and stuff like that. Obviously I like to put the launch clamps to be more stable on the launch pad. I like to put some struts also between the first and the second stage for the same reason, to not have a wobbly rocket, and I added those 4 vernier engines there to have some more control of the upper stage. Obviously super duper important, check your staging, control that everything activates at the correct moment, and check the thrust to weight ratio from the engineer's report to make sure that we have enough TVR to get off Kerbin. Then nothing, just save the vehicle and get ready for the required time warp once on the pad to align the 2 planets. So yeah, now that we look at the relative positioning of the planets, we know that to go to Duna must be in front of Kerbin of 45 degrees. We know that Joule must be in front of roughly 90 degrees, while instead Dres must be in front of 80 something degrees. Therefore we will have to time warp a whole lot until Kerbin goes all the way around and then puts itself on a relative position of about 80 degrees with respect to Dres. This is lag because of these notifications here, which I don't know if there is a way to deactivate them, and I guess that now we are more or less aligned as we were supposed to be, since these are not 90 degrees, they are a little less. Therefore let's try it, and if I am early I can just time warp once got into orbit. Okay, so let's go back to time warp footage. It was a very low FPS action, therefore yeah, just better to speed it up. It's a standard launch in Kerbal space program by taking off vertical and then slowly starting to tilt the rocket a little bit to the east by tapping D on the keyboard, obviously without doing it too much while too low inside of the atmosphere, because there it's very easy to lose control. I luckily enough had the huge, you can see like the huge vectoring power of the rockets that really helped me be stable during the launch. Then obviously while about 30 kilometers of height we can drop our fairing because we are outside of the thickest part of the atmosphere, and so we don't need it anymore, and it's just mass that would reduce our acceleration. Here we found some kind of kraken blocking our 2 stages together even if we decoupled, but luckily enough once out of the atmosphere and using the time warp I got rid of the first stage and could increase a little bit more the height of my AP, of my apoapsis, until it was at about 150 kilometers, and from there then using a maneuver plan to create a circular orbit, and then from there be ready to perform the maneuver that will take us interplanetary to an intercept course with Dres. Okay, there we go, we are into orbit, 155 by 147. It's a circular orbit enough. Okay, now to get into a higher orbit with respect to the one of curving around the sun, we need to have a burn that's gonna take our velocity and increase it with respect to curving, so going forward away from curving in that direction. So yeah, as you see, our orbit got a little bigger by burning in this direction, and we can then start tweaking around by clicking on the maneuver node with left click and dragging it around the orbit to understand from which point with that delta V that we're gonna give, we are gonna get the highest orbit relative to the sun, which is what we are interested into to get an intersection with the Dres. Now, as you can see, there is a quite substantial difference in plane inclination with respect to our orbit after the maneuver node and the orbit of the Dres. Therefore, we can try and adjust a little bit while performing the burn exiting from curving, which is gonna optimize the amount of delta V that we're gonna need. But since it's so big and we are not in the axis of the nodes of the two planes, we are gonna have to do the maneuver while we are gonna be in the orbit around the sun. Therefore, here I'm burning in a off-plane direction that is gonna decrease our angle to the maximum amount that we can. I do not switch from one camera view to the map view during the burn because this resets the amount of delta V that the burn requires. Therefore, it doesn't allow us to obtain a good orbit. There you see what was the orbit shown by the burn, and after of having performed the maneuver more or less eyeballing it, I can warp until I get in orbit around kerbal, not the sun, it's called kerbal here, and then from there tweak another maneuver to check again the difference of inclination and get into the correct one. Okay, so here we are at minus 3.8 degrees below the orbital plane of Dres, so we need to increase, so go up, so burn in the normal direction. And looks like we are very close with this second intersection, therefore let's try and play a little bit around the maneuver plan and see if we can obtain an encounter. Oh, there we go, there we have it. We have an encounter. Let's try and focus on Dres and see if it shows us where we are gonna be. This might probably be just a straight line from one side to the other. These are the locations in which we're gonna enter and exit the sphere of influence. It doesn't show us a trajectory. Sometimes I manage to have the game showing it. I don't know what I was doing those times. Today apparently it's not one of those times. So let's extend our gigantor solar arrays and our antenna. The camera is kind of messed up, but okay. Let's directly aim at where we're gonna have to perform the maneuver using the reaction control thrusters and our vernier engines. There we are. And then here it shows us that there are only 4 hours away from our burn, but I guess they forgot to put a space for the days, because obviously it's not just 4 days away. Let's see if we time warp using the game feature. Perfect. Now we are 4 hours away for real. And so here I was performing this maneuver plan here, performing this maneuver, trying to line up my spacecraft with what was indicated there. The spacecraft started to flip itself around for some unexplicable reason, therefore I had to reactivate the RCS, reactivate the SAS, try to keep it stable. I don't know why I overshot the maneuver, and then apparently I did not execute it correctly, therefore I had to create another maneuver plan, tweak around a little bit with it, obviously without seeing where actually we were gonna pass close to the planet. I just had to rely on the 2 dots, on the two groups of circles showing the entrance and the exit from the sphere of influence, and so yeah, that's what I had to do there. Here again I overshot the maneuver apparently, so I tried to use the RCS to adjust my trajectory. Did not work, had to create another maneuver plan, and with this finally I was able to obtain another encounter with Dres entering inside of its sphere of influence, passing through at a decent distance from the planet, therefore finally being able to fast forward time until we got there, and then try to begin a circularization maneuver to enter into orbit around it and make sure to not escape back into kerbalar orbit. I still can't find it. There's some light coming inside. Oh, there it is. Oh, there you go. Look at that. So gorgeous with its rings. Let's burn completely out this stage and say bye-bye. And then ignite our nuclear engine burning hydrogen to get ourselves into orbit around Dres. $2,000 meters per second this maneuver, we have 3,100, we have plenty of Delta V more to then do some exploration around the system. I mean, to explore the rings and lower ourselves into an orbit that gets closer to the surface of the planet. Can just time warp a little bit. Let's go. Times 10. Stop a little of the time warp, not time warp. To reorient ourselves. Let's see where we are. Where are we? Oh, here. I was too zoomed in. And there we go. We are into orbit around Dres. We can clear this maneuver node. Orbiting at 72 meters per second. 3,500 kilometers from the surface of the planet. Our beautiful orbiter here. And the sun down there in the distance. Our Gigantors sucking in all the sunlight that I can find in this side of space. Let's lower our PE and let's try and go for a dive inside of the rings. This looks like we would pass inside that ring there. Do we? We're gonna discover it soon, I guess. Let's time warp and get closer to the surface. Oh, look at that. Nice revamp of the textures of this planet too. Look at the rings. It's the first time that I actually see some rings in Kerbal Space Program. I never played the mods that introduced rings in KSP1. This is very cool. Just look at that. So we're gonna pass below this ring here. Ah, and look on the equator at the height of the rings. There is like some rock structures, some mountains. That's interesting. That's a cool geological feature. So let's fast forward a little bit here, since not much was happening. It was just me orienting the spacecraft around to get some cool images of the planet in the background. We're getting closer to this ring here. What is it? Don't understand. This camera is so weird right now. Not Chase, not Horizon, Celestial, I guess. Yes, Celestial is the correct one. Coming up on the ring. Did we stay a little bit? Oh. No. We went just shy of it. Passed a little bit too much on the inside of it. What? I was like, why am I highlighting the spacecraft instead? No, that's the color that I gave to the spacecraft. It's green like that because I made it like that. I feel so dumb. Unfortunately, no passage between the rings at the first try. I did not correctly align up my orbit, and so yeah, it was time to go again. Here, still looking at some good shots of the planet in the background and everything, and now changing a little bit the orbit by maneuvering at the AP to be more efficient, rising it a little bit and getting ready to enter. And we are gonna discover what they are made of. They are ice rocks. Or what else? We're really gonna enter inside of them. Oh, look at that gigantic crater that they have there. Maybe that's the origin of these rings, you know? Like, there was an impact of a gigantic meteor or a comet on the surface that flung into orbit all these rocks that then fell back down on the planet, becoming... Oh, look at that! Look at all the rocks were inside of the rings! We just passed through them! Oh, wow! This is cool. You know, like maybe the impact flung into orbit all of these rocks that then fell down, created that ring over the surface. And also this ring here in orbit. And actually maybe this will be enough fuel to try and land on the planet, to be fair. Shall we do that? Let's see. Let's quick save. And lower again our orbit so that we have a slower relative speed, also because I'm orbiting retrograde. So there is some more delta V needed. Since the planet is spinning in this direction, we are spinning in this. We're gonna need to make our velocity negative with respect to the planet. We will need more delta V than when simply orbiting in the same direction in which the planet is spinning around its axis, you know. Oh, and listen to this music. Like as soon as we lowered inside of like, it's like the game started to feel like we are going for an attempt of landing, you know, and they put some more epic music with respect to the one that we had before. Oh, I guess that I lowered it a little bit too much. I wanna stay still above 50 kilometers so that I can time warp at this velocity. Let's see if there is some interesting... oh, well, I cannot time warp faster than this. It would be cool to try and land in that big crater there. But unfortunately it would take a lot. And since we're gonna intercept it around here, since it was around the equator, it will take some time. So yeah, nothing much happening here, just me scanning the features of the surface to understand where to land and then getting ready. Dres is more or less like the man of Kerbin. Therefore, we should have enough delta V, actually more than enough. More than enough TVR. And starting a landing from 50 kilometers of height should be fair enough. To do a landing, I like to lower my PE until it's about... oh, a little bit too much. Till it's about like 10 kilometers from the ground. And then once we're gonna get around here, we are gonna really start burn again prograde to lower it inside of... well, not of the atmosphere, but directly of the surface of the planet. So now the game is gonna slow down even more our time warp availability. I guess so. Yes, indeed, ×4. Ooh, very close and personal with the surface of Dres. Let's switch into the horizon camera mode. Look at that, the sun, the rings, the planet on the other side. This is cool. And with this music in the background. Okay. So let's do our little flip. In orbit at 400 meters per second. Not too fast. We are 2 minutes away from the periapsis. We're just gonna start slowing down very carefully. Let's give a 25% of throttle. Aiming retrograde, we can do it ourselves. No need to go for the auto retrograde here. Look at how our engine heats up and goes full red. Okay, we are ready with our apoapsis at our current location practically. The periapsis is already inside of the ground. We're going down, boys. Can lower a little bit the thrust now, otherwise we're gonna go too slow while being too high. Now I'm gonna angle myself a little bit above of the retrograde symbol so that then I can time warp, and in theory gradually this is gonna move and get close to where I am aiming. It's time warp times 4. Yeah, you see it's going this direction because obviously we are reducing more the horizontal speed than the vertical speed, therefore it's gonna go close to the center of the nav ball, which means that we are starting to fall vertical. We're at 6 kilometers above the ground, going at 105 meters per second. It's just switched to surface, and you see how there's quite a significant difference between them, and that's because the planet is rotating towards the east, so in that direction below us. Well, instead we were orbiting in the opposite direction. 5 kilometers and a half above the ground, going at 80 meters per second. This is more than fine. We have everything under control. Actually, we may be going even too slow. Could do a little bit more of a suicide burn, like the Falcon 9 does when it lands, you know, like it waits until the last possible second to start and decelerate before landing on the landing pad or on the barges in the sea. Well, instead we are keeping it safe, since we have all this throttle capability and we have all this delta V. We are going very, very slowly, decreasing our velocity constantly during the entirety of the landing procedure. Three kilometers from the ground, 65 meters per second. I'm quite sure that I have more than enough TVR on the gravity of this planet to slow down a little bit later. Where are we gonna end up? Down here? Looks like. Let's hope it's not too steep, since we don't have landing legs. 60 meters per second at 1.5 kilometers from the ground. Let's slow down a little more. One kilometer. Meters per second, 600 meters from the ground. Let's give it a little bit more thrust. $30 meters per second at 3.5. 100 meters. That was a very weird place to way of saying my height above the ground. 50 meters per second. We're going too slow and too high. Let's crank down the throttle a little bit. Still slowing down at 180 meters above ground. Okay, now we're practically falling vertically at 80 meters per second at less than 100 meters above the ground. 70 meters, 60, 50, 40 meters going at 5 meters per second, slowing down. We were accelerating there. 20 meters above the ground. Starting to see some side slip. 2 meters per second. And touchdown. Let's activate RCS for stability. Look at that. Look at what we are holding ourselves onto. Oh, we landed. We landed on Dres. Let's go. Okay, well, this was not expected, to be fair, for this kind of mission. But we did it. We are here. There's some shiny rocks around. We are very stable. We have our Gigantors producing electricity and keeping our SIS active so that we can stay vertical. See the rings. See the sun there. Oh, this also is a nice shot. That's cool. Let's time warp a little bit. Let's see what happens. Oh, wow, the sun sets. Incredible. Who would have thought? And so on this image of kerbal setting over Dres and over our spacecraft, I want to thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the video and found it useful, and that you may consider subscribing for other Kerbal Space Program 2 videos and tutorials, and I wish you a good day. Talk to you guys next time. Bye!